Here we are. Lou, listen, welcome to the Cypher. I'm really excited that you're here. Thank you so much for taking the time with us this Saturday morning. How are you?
Mikey, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm having a wild week. It's been one busy week, that's for sure, but I'm happy it's Saturday and I can slow down a little bit and spend some time here hanging out with you.
Yeah, why is it so fast this week? What's the scuttlebutt?
Well, let me just plug this in.
Yeah, go for it.
So we got better internet, just in case. This week has been wild because of Go Produce. We're actually in the midst of recording season 4. It's a podcast that I have where I interview music industry professionals, and I like to do it in bulk. So we're in the middle of doing that, preparing outlines, getting different elements of the different segments ready to go. It's been wild. We're almost pretty much 50% there. We've got one more week to do, and then we should be good to go.
Wow, lots of recording. I know what that's like. I've recently also started to do that. So I have like 4 interviews this weekend. So it's, one of those things where it can stack up pretty quick, the workload, for sure.
You're doing 4 on the weekend, hey?
Yeah, 4 on the weekend.
Is that something that you find that fits in your system better, in terms of your schedule? Like, just do them on the weekend and then lay them out, I guess, for the month?
Exactly. So the thing is that I work full time, so Cypher is something that I get to do, and so I have to kind of work it around my schedule, which is, working these 40, 50-hour weeks, whatever the case is, and then finding time to do Cypher kind of in between. So the weekends is when I get, most of my like recording of like interviews done and stuff like that, because it's harder to do interviews during the week. Like maybe you can feel kind of crunched for time, or like I can't start until after a certain time. So it's just easier, I think, for, most of my guests to record on the weekend. Some of them, won't record on the weekend, and that's fine. But for the most part, this is when I try to fit it all in, and then I edit during the week because that's just, I can do it whenever.
You got that time. Yeah, no, it makes total sense. You gotta play smart in this game. Totally.
You have to also, I have to, like, whenever I'm free kind of thing, I just, like, whenever I have time to do it, I can do it. Well, listen, I want to start by asking you kind of a question that you ask a lot of your guests, but there's a little twist on it. So the question is, what is your first musical memory? But the twist is, since we're on Cypher and this is hip-hop, what is your first hip-hop memory?
All right. I like that twist. Okay, so the first one that comes to mind, this isn't my first ever memory. I'll give you the first ever memory. It's probably just sitting in a car listening to Eminem music. I mean,
nice.
Like,
that's a good one, though. That's a good one.
Yeah. Oddly enough, we're actually sitting in the car. It was myself and my mom, and my mom's like, "Why don't you listen to this music more?" I was like, "Mom, do you even hear what he's saying?" And I was like 7 years old at the time, but whatever. That was fun. But what stood out more and more impactful in the hip hop space for me was actually attending a concert, a DAX. It wasn't a concert, it was a show in a very small, dungy cavern. But it was fun and it was intimate, and I recently came off of, I had knee surgery a couple of weeks earlier, so I just got off my crutches, so I really wasn't moving around. I was just there to really take in the experience because I admired what he was doing, his energy, and I wanted to ultimately use that as an experience to learn and then apply it to my own practice down the road whenever I do start performing. So that, I would say, is the most meaningful, greatest memory that I have in hip-hop so far. Wow,
I love that. I love the live memory of it, you know what I mean? Like of a show or something like that. Like, sometimes I get asked about country music. It's not my favorite style of music, admittedly, but I went to this one country concert a long time ago, and I had the best time because it was live and it was about the experience, Yep. I think music is really, really missing that lately with COVID, and I know, right? We just sink our heads kind of. I'm interested to know from your perspective, what direction do you think the music industry is headed kind of post-COVID? Once shows start to come back, do you think the landscape is going to go back to what we were used to, or do you think it's changed more permanently after this?
I think that there are a couple of permanent changes that we will see in terms of people being more aware of their cleanliness. However, we're social beings. I mean, like, we will cluster once again. You're already seeing it across different cities. Like, people aren't really hesitating to going back to that because, like, that's human nature. We need that almost sense of connection. But we're going to see those festivals open up, at least in my opinion. We're going to see them open up, but we're still going to see the virtual aspects of them. And there are going to be a lot of different ways to, like, really integrate the experience for people anywhere around the world that can be almost immersive, if you will. Like, you can be sitting backstage, and what I'm seeing is, like, a virtual pop-up, and people are performing in your living room. So you can get that experience from home, but you can also be there seeing it live, which adds a different element to it, which I think is fascinating, truly fascinating. When are we going to get there? That's hard to say because we've got different governments doing different things, different people telling different narratives. So that's at least where I want to go. I think that'd be fascinating.
I think that's good. I think that is good. I think you're definitely right. It's going to have to be some crossover because there's things about the, you know, quote unquote, I guess, music industry, if you will, or just like music in general. I think that we've totally lost that we need back. Obviously, like the live shows and stuff like that. But there's, you know, like there's lots of ways now for the music industry to make money by doing some of the like virtual backstage events, you know, and doing some of these new things. Like, for example, NFTs have become huge now, especially in hip-hop. Rappers like Lil Yachty and Lil Baby, you know, the businessman rappers are starting to really get in. What's your opinion of NFTs, and like, have you thought about it? Is it in kind of the vision of the future for you?
Absolutely. NFTs are I'd like to say we're in pre-internet era when we're talking about NFTs. I don't think that they'll really pick up traction for the general popularity within maybe 3 to 5 years, but we're seeing those big names. We're seeing the curious individuals, the curious entrepreneurs that aren't only artists. Like, you may know them as artists, but they are business people. You know, they're trading, they're learning different skills, they're applying them as time adapts, and this is part of what is happening with our futures, at least. And so I myself am getting a little bit more involved in the NFT space as a very beginner artist by understanding it, learning a little bit more about blockchain, and finding different ways to utilize it. I obviously don't have a big following at this point in time, so selling an NFT for $100, even for $1,000 might be a little bit crazy. So I need to be able. Everyone should be able to distinguish where they are on that totem pole, but at least be able to understand it and prepare yourself for that movement if you can't already do it right now. It is currently very expensive to put out NFTs. Maybe you won't even sell it, so that's the gamble right now. There are different apps that I'm becoming more familiar with. One of them is called User, and we're actually building a relationship with them, and they're going to make it very easy for, like, almost you upload your NFTs like an Instagram, and you can just scroll through the feed. It creates almost a marketplace, and then it's super easy for people to buy it too because it connects to OpenSea and all of that fun stuff. So as I learn more about that, I'm happy to share that with you. But NFTs, NFTs, learn about that for sure.
It's a world for sure. It is important, you know, whether you're considering to, like, you know, start owning them or selling them or whatever. It's important just to understand because it's an interesting crossover between the music industry and finance, which we don't see very often. You know, like, obviously every aspect of the music industry is, you know, tied to business. You know, like you were saying, these rappers are businessmen. You know, they own record labels, they own their own companies or clothing lines or whatever the case is. But we don't see, like, you know, like the finance industry cross over into other industries like this, you know, so often, which is why I think it's so interesting. And I think it's exciting for artists to kind of get on, not necessarily the bandwagon, but, you know, kind of get on the leading edge of kind of this opportunity. So I think it's interesting, and I'm excited to hear that you're, you know, learning about it and keeping abreast to that. I want to take a little bit of a step back just because now that we've kind of, quote unquote, breaking the ice a little bit, I know that you do that a little bit on your show as well. I want to take a step back and talk about how you became interested in the music industry and hip hop, because not everybody might know this, but not only are you a podcaster, Go produces a podcast that talks about how to turn your passion into profit. It's educational, at the same time very entertaining. I've listened to a bunch of episodes. I love it. If you haven't heard Go Produce yet, go over there. They actually give you tangible and useful tips that you can use as an artist to turn your passion into profit. So, Lou, thank you for taking a little time out of your schedule to do this interview. I want to talk about how you became first interested in music and hip-hop.
It was truly bizarre. It started off as I recently wrote a bio because I was submitting a grant application. And so this is the brief story.
I love a good bio. I love a good bio.
So this is how I started it off. Essentially, I was on this path of self-discovery, and it sounds really cheesy and corny, but like a lot of chaos was happening in my life. I was working in the pharmaceutical industry. I was far from happy. I was gaining weight. I could feel myself just being angry. Like someone would cut me off on the road and I would just yell. And then I realized that I just yelled. I was like, I'm not an angry person and I don't want to be an angry person. So chaos ensued. I was like, I have enough of this. What can I do to like figure out what I want to do? Because at that point in time, I had no answers. And so I started reading. I did a couple of like Google searches, how to become better at life. Like, what should I be doing so that I can become more efficient? Very like random questions, but one article led to the next. And it led me down this more narrow path of like self-discovery, but then towards personal development. I got more aware of what I could do. And as I was doing these different or applying these different strategies to myself, I became more fascinated with this world, and I found a new sense of confidence within myself. The confidence then led to me wanting to share the lessons that I've recently acquired with other people, and that grew into a motivational speaking kind of attempt. That was a very short-lived period, but during that period, I actually hired a speaking coach. I was part of Toastmasters. I still am part of Toastmasters, this organization that helps you develop communication and professional skills. And with all of this, I spent a lot of time writing. I didn't spend a lot of time writing in my previous life, but it was writing out ideas, writing out outlines. I recently started writing in like a journal as well, so I was doing a lot of writing. And this allowed me to develop a greater appreciation for putting your thoughts out onto like something physical instead of just storing everything in your head.
Right.
And I didn't realize it at the time, but there was a lot of crossover here between writing speeches and then writing songs. The big difference for me was when you're writing speeches and you go to rehearse them, there's no music in the background, at least when I was rehearsing. And I was like,
right.
What is going on? I really don't like this. And I realized it was the lack of music. And all of the music that I was listening to at the time was more so less dancey, but more lyrical. So I was actually listening to the people because I was taking their thoughts, maybe because I was more in tune with my own thoughts. And so I said, why not let me try and put my thoughts towards music the way that these people are doing so. And my appreciation for hip-hop grew during that time because it swayed away from like, oh, hip-hop is just negative and like gruesome and like just stuff that I can't relate to, towards maybe I can just share my kinds of emotions. And I started discovering other kinds of artists that are doing something similar in their own styles. So I was like, I gotta try this a little bit more. And I fell a little bit more in love with hip hop. Music itself has always been around, and I had an appreciation. And now that the more that I do music itself and I apply I consider myself to be an artist, the more I realize that music was more intimately enveloped in the rest of my life.
Right.
But I wouldn't have said that I was a creative individual whatsoever before 26 years old.
Wow, really? Because it seems like when people are creatives, you know, it's kind of something that they carry with them all their lives. You know, like it's interesting to say that you don't think that you were creative until just recently. Do you think that it kind of like almost like you had to kind of find it in yourself, like you didn't know that you had it, and it was just a matter of taking the right steps in order to kind of get to the point where you were like, oh, maybe I can actually do this like consistently?
Absolutely, absolutely. There were a couple of different events that like triggered change, and that probably accelerated it. But there were different cues throughout, like before 26 years old, that almost indicated that like, yeah, you have the potential to do this. But I never actually considered that to be a thing. Like I was always interested in like filming things, but I never considered myself to be a videographer or like that kind of stuff. Like I was science. I'm gonna be a doctor. I'm gonna like help save lives. It's black or white. There's no like in between. You're right. You're wrong. You know, and that might be due to some of the conversations that I've had with people in the past. Like, oh, you know, religion is creation and it's all against evolution. And I was like, no, it's only evolution. So I kind of just blocked off creation. Even more than I anticipated, and that was kind of, I guess, detrimental to the rest of my development, but it was cool when I was able to discover it later. Not that now I'm religious, but I have more appreciation for spirituality and for creation.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It's interesting to, you know, everybody's creative process fascinates me a little bit, you know, and part of the creative process is sometimes like learning that you're creative, you know? People sometimes forget, like, that's part of the creative process, is you have to kind of discover what your creative gene is. You know, everyone has a different one.
To add to that, though,
go ahead.
Just to add to that, everyone has their creative gene, and the reason I say that is because if you can speak words, or if you can move, that's a very subtle form of creation. You just have to work on it a little bit more, and you can get more creative. Like, you can get healthier, you can go to the gym, you can get more creative. It's just acknowledging it and working on it.
You know, one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever heard was make the art that you want to make as an artist, you know, and how that kind of translated to me was everybody can be an artist in some way, you know, if you're making the art that you want to make, you know. And it was this producer who had produced for rappers like, you know, Drake and Kendrick, some of these big guys, right? And he has a TikTok, and I follow him, and he does actually some really cool content. I'll send him to you just so you can, you know, check him out. And he does these really cool, you know, little TikToks where he talks about some experiences that he's had in the studio with other, you know, incredible artists. And I can't remember the name of the artist that he was in the studio with, but he said he was in a session, and somebody had asked him, you know, what was the best piece of advice that he could give, and the advice that he gave was make the art that you want to make. You don't have to make the art that, you know, your friend wants you to make, or that your parents want, or anything like that. Like, it has to come from you, which is why everybody's creative gene is special to them if you just make the art that you want to make, you know. And you have the right to say that you are an artist, you know, even though, like, for me, podcasting isn't the full-time gig at the moment, even though one day I hope that it will be. I can still tell people, hey, I'm a podcaster, you know.
Absolutely.
Even though my 9 to 5 is in media, podcasting is where I get to be creative, you know, in the interview questions and all this fun stuff or whatever. And so everybody has their own creative gene. That's why sometimes it bothers me a little bit when someone says, oh, I'm not creative at all. I'm like, no, maybe you're just not looking in the right places.
Absolutely, you're not looking in the right places, and maybe they don't even want to look.
That's another thing. It has to kind of, you have to kind of have that, you know, you have to have that it factor a little bit. This is awesome.
Absolutely.
I want to say the podcast is great. Go Produce is an awesome effort. Like I'm telling, you know, my few listeners, you know, we're both kind of in the growing stage of our podcast. It's part of the grind.
Shout out to every one of those listeners, though, hey?
Yeah, shout out to all 30 of them for me. You know, it's huge. But this is all part of it. You know, we're trying to have fun with it. And I recently kind of discovered that, having fun with the process, you know? And so we've known each other for a couple months, and we've been, you know, sharing talks and, you know, experiences and little stories here and there about what our journeys have been like so far. And it's been great for me, you know, because I don't know a ton of people in my life that are doing podcasting, so it's awesome to have a few people to bounce all that stuff off of. And I guess kind of the question that I want to ask is, your long-term goal is to become an artist, you know, and have kind of that artistry aspect of your career. How do the two fit together as part of the Big Lou master plan of artistry and podcasting? How do you see the two kind of coexisting?
I love talking about this. So master plan is the best
I'll
way
buckle
to
up.
say...
Hold on, let me buckle up.
Let's go.
All right, I want to hear it.
It was quite conflicting having to come up with this, because I had the idea of starting a podcast and I had the idea of becoming a rapper. And I decided I'm going to be a rapper, but I don't know anything about this, like the music industry,
right?
Let alone rap. So I had to learn how to rap. Still doing that because I feel like you can always learn that. But that aside,
Big Lou, hey, everybody is always learning how to rap. Kendrick is still learning how to rap, so I think you're doing just fine. Everybody is still learning how to rap. Yeah.
Yes, as they should be, at least if they want to.
Right.
Anyway, so with that idea in mind, it's like, how am I going to expedite this? Because I came into this idea of starting this at 27, a month before I turned 28. So time isn't necessarily against me, but I'm not 18, 16 years old deciding this, right?
Right.
So I'm not competing against them, but I know that there's a whole world of artists that are also trying to do this. So what can I do to put myself in a better position to then enter the industry as an artist? And I figured, why not connect with as many people within the music industry that are actively doing, not just like, hey, I'm in it, that's fun, and we all have our stories, but I need to learn from the people that are actively, successfully doing, that have learned and that are winning. So let me create a platform where they are comfortable speaking to me, and then once I have that information, how am I going to thrive or be able to bring value and help others thrive within the music industry at the same time?
Totally.
Let me just share this information through a podcast. Podcasting is popping off right now. YouTube.
Yeah.
I didn't really have the video persona or energy at the time to do YouTube, but I just added the video element with the team here. I approached the studio. I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to learn about the music industry. I want to bring value to you, and I want to rap. If we can do this all together, I'll be the personality. I'll do the project management, you guys do video, audio, this and that. We'll bring our strengths together and we can put together a package. That'd be fascinating. But as I was doing that, I had to put the artistry aside. When I recently discovered the artistry, so I said a month before I turned 28. That month, I wrote a verse every single day, just to challenge myself and see if I was actually up for this. Obviously I was. And I was quite impressed with what I wrote. Nothing was wow, but it wasn't trash. It was enough for me to be I'm going to keep on going.
Got to start somewhere,
Exactly. So from that, I called the studio, made the exchange, made the offers. We set it all up. And the focus has been around build and go produce, establishing those networks so that I can provide the value. And that when I do start releasing, I'm releasing to the right people. Some people can hear it around me, but maybe it doesn't go past them. But if you have the right people listening to it and you've got the placements going, that can really be a huge game changer. So that's where the podcast is living. I'm very happy there, though. The foundation has been established quite well, and now I can focus a little bit more on artistry. Once we finish filming season 4, I do plan on releasing music. But I just learned that I still got to do some copyright and other stuff. So,
hey, you know what? That's exciting. Hey, there's always something to do. There's always going to be some administrative thing to do. You know what I mean? But it's exciting that you're getting to the point now where you're, getting ready to release music. I mean, that was kind of part of the long-term goal. And you answered, I have a couple of little follow-up questions written down. One of my questions was going to be balancing the podcast and the artistry. It must be tough sometimes because, I am teaching myself more patience. Sometimes I forget how young we are. Even, I'm a couple years younger than you, but in the grand scheme of things, being in your 20s is still really young,
So young.
And I'm, so one of those things is I'm trying to teach myself more patience, and it sounds like you've kind of been able to have that because knowing that you wanted to be an artist and almost kind of putting that on the back burner to start the podcast and to grow that means that it's a little bit of time taken away from, kind of succeeding as an artist, quote unquote. Maybe faster is maybe not the right word, but you know what I mean. The podcast is taking a little bit of time away from you working on the artistry. So do you feel like you're ever prioritizing one over the other, or do you feel like it doesn't matter to me how quickly the artist thing grows because I enjoy doing both the podcast and the artistry just kind of the same? Or how do you kind of in your head delineate, all right, I want the podcast to grow this fast, or I want to spend this much time on the artistry? How do you kind of divide yourself?
That's a brilliant question. And I got to say that I do struggle with that. One thing, or one element that has helped with my patience outside of COVID, because we're still in lockdown out here. It's been about a year and a half of this. So that in itself,
we should also mention,
tests your patience.
We forgot to mention, you're in Canada, I'm in the United States, so we have, we're crossing the international border here to get these interviews done, but also at the same time, Canada's in a much different situation, So like the United States might get live music back a little bit sooner, we don't know these things.
I'm rooting for you. I mean, like, I hope so. But yeah, we're still in lockdown. So that has been a test on patience. And like, I must admit there are periods in time where I go I get a little upset. I feel alone, this and that, despite having people around me, because it's bewildering. But that also tests your patience. And then way back when I was a month before I started writing, I had 2 knee surgeries. So I was bedridden for approximately 7 months. In that period of time. And so that's also when I started the artistry. So from the get-go, I've had to put off the artistry. And I was still able to like write and do this and that. So the sacrifice of not fully pursuing the artistry has been something that I've had to live with. And instead of being truly upset about, man, I can't spend all this time writing, or I want to spend I want to sit with some other artists and do songwriting circles like my friends are doing. Yeah. I know, instead of getting down on that, I use that as like motivation to work and do the other kinds of works that I'm not necessarily fully excited about, to build that foundation so that tomorrow, whenever tomorrow is, I can fully take in the artistry. So it's exciting. It's like I've got to do this work so that I can do that work.
Yeah, I love that kind of motivating kind of mindset, I think mindset's the right word, because you realize, okay, in order to do those things, I have to start here with these things, even though these things might suck. Like that's just how it is sometimes. Yeah. I guess you mentioned that learning was one of the biggest reasons that you started your show, and there's a huge educational aspect to it. So my question is, what are some of the most valuable lessons that you've learned from doing your show by having guests on? If you could pick like 2 lessons, 2 or 3. Yeah. What would be some of the lessons?
So right off the bat, because of what we were just talking about, a reoccurring theme that I'm getting from this season, actually, that we haven't released yet, is once you are able, as an artist or as a creative, to not have to worry about finances, to not have to like pursue that next gig, to like feed yourself for a week and a half, to find, once you can like get just out of that, your mental game changes, and you can really enter a new level of creativity. That's truly fascinating, and that's what I'm so hungry for. Because I feel like I do at times feel hindered, because of the different stressors that I have to worry about. And I do wonder, it's like, wow, what if I could just like do art, Right. And it's real. So these people are saying it's a real thing. Yeah. So keep on working, keep on grinding until you can get there.
That's a dope lesson. That's cool.
And then another lesson that I get constantly is as simple as it. I'll share another one because of how simple this one is. But be kind. Care. Yeah. Even if you don't always genuinely care, make an effort to do so. Yeah. Because the person really feels it. Yeah, the person on the other end really feels it. And you yourself, even if you're not doing it for them, even if you are a little bit selfish, you yourself will benefit from this because you will be down one day. And when you're down, you're going to need a little bit of help. So be kind. Even if it hurts, be kind.
I'm with you on that. Did you have a third one?
Yeah, let's do a third one. The third one I would say is build your relationships. So you're going to be kind, but you're going to also like talk to people that aren't even within your circle, because every single person out there knows something that you don't.
One of my favorite quotes of all time is, everyone is my superior in some way, and in that, I learn of them. And I take that with me because, and it sounds weird, but I take that with me because there might be somebody in, like, health sciences that I meet. You know what I mean? And in 2 years from now, they're doing something in health sciences that could potentially have something to do with music. It might be cool. It might be new.
Yeah.
It might be the thing. So you never, ever want to burn a bridge. No, I'm just going to say
So
you
true.
never, ever want to burn a bridge because you never know where people are going to end up. You never know what's going to happen next week, you know? And I think the building relationships thing is one of the most important things, especially at, like, you know, if you're an artist at a similar point in time, you know, where you and I are with the podcast, or you're building your own artistry, like, relationships are how you start. You know, that is like one of the first steps you take. My literal next question was going to be, have you been finding ways to use some of these lessons on your own on the daily? Have you been finding ways to kind of put these into action? Obviously, be kind and, you know, building relationships is two things that you can do every day. And the third lesson that you talked about is maybe a little bit more one that you're looking forward to, you know, or working towards. But talk about how you've been using these every day.
I'm not perfect. I say be kind. I say build relationships. But there are moments where I have weaknesses and, like, different things are happening, and then someone says this one thing that isn't really relevant to the situation. I'm like, why are you even, like, what are you even doing right now? Can you not see that we're doing this? And perhaps it's not the most kind response. But what I do to, you know, it happens.
Yeah, yes.
And we're working on it, but what I do to actively work on it is I actually spend some time writing every morning to reflect on my previous day. So if I had a difficult situation, I think about why it was difficult. Why did I allow myself to feel the way I did based off of someone else's reactions? I ask myself, did I respond the way that I feel like I should respond? The person that I want to be, would they respond that way? Because in the situation is one thing, but then you have to step out of the situation and reflect on that. I find that has helped me grow. And then also, I found that I used to be more stubborn around the decisions that I make because, like, it takes a degree of energy to make a decision and then to stand to it. And I'm very adamant on making decisions and making them quickly, but now I'm more comfortable with changing my mind once I've made a decision, once I've received new information.
Yeah.
And I'm finding that I'm taking in new information so constantly, so, like, we're constantly pivoting, and it gets tiring. But, like, it's like a fighter in a ring, right? You're constantly pivoting to, like, get your footwork so that you can keep on taking the blows, and so you can give more. So the faster you can pivot and the more comfortable with it, the better I think we can do in business. So that's what I've been trying to do.
Do you make more decisions based on data or based on your going with your gut?
Currently, going off the gut, I'm getting better at interpreting data. I know that data is really where it all lies, but my gut, I follow more so in terms of the human reaction that I gain from people. Like, the data isn't going to tell me this person is friendly. They're going to, like, not screw me over in the future. It's more gut feeling that I get, the empathy that I rely on for human connection and relationships. But in terms of actual market growth and that, I got to spend more time in the numbers.
Yeah. Hey, we're getting there. You know, we're getting there. I have kind of just like it's more of a landscape question for you. And the reason I call it that is because I want to talk about how you see hip-hop right now.
Interesting. Okay. Hip-hop is, I think it's always been fascinating from its birth, from its inception. I wasn't a fan from its inception. But now, as I'm getting more involved in the space and speaking to different people and gaining their perspectives, as well as developing my own perspective, I'm able to realize that, like, the history and the story behind what hip-hop is, its essence, essentially, is just turning nothing into something, making the most of what you've got, and, like, flourishing beyond all odds when you're not even supposed to, you know, like...
Yeah.
And I think that is true triumphance. Triumphance, is that even a word? I think that's truly, it can be. I think it's truly magnificent. But today, we're seeing lots of different artists being exploited for their various attributes just to gain reactions. And I don't think that's so much so for the art. I think it's human psychology, and we're being manipulated. And I'm not pointing fingers to any record labels or to Spotify or to this and that. But like the bigger players are really trying to maintain a monopoly and push a narrative that isn't healthy for humans, I should say. I mean, everything's derogatory. We're like fighting. I don't know. Just different messages that I don't fully agree with, and that's not the whole hip hop space.
It's disingenuous too. You know, kind of going off of what you were saying, it's disingenuous. That's one of the big things that Cypher's trying to work on. You know, like I started this as like, let's get rid of the negative stereotypes, and then I realized, well, there's gonna be negative stereotypes around it. You know, it's hard to kind of get rid of those, and so Cypher quickly turned into, let's show people the genuine side of hip hop that sometimes gets overshadowed by the side that you're talking about. You know, so it's not even necessarily like getting rid of the negative stereotypes. It's more or less like, let's just understand it more. You know, like let's get into it and talk about it and see different perspectives and hear the stories and kind of make it more human again. You know, I feel like you. I agree with you. I think it's kind of lost that a little bit.
And until I guess stepped into the space voluntarily, I didn't see the genuine side of hip hop. You know, because I was only fed what the media was showing me. And so talking about it is brilliant. I mean, like, and then also stepping into it and then contributing that kind of music I'm very excited about that too.
It's I just had a thought, and it was, okay, so when you're not actively searching for good hip hop, you get fed the type of hip hop that is, you know, that is the stereotype. That's interesting.
That has the dollars. They have the dollars, and they get pumped to you. Like, how are you going to compete against these record labels with like hundreds of millions of dollars, bro?
To push, like, and you know, like, don't get me wrong, there's a ton of rappers that are signed to labels that I love. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And some of those guys are the ones, exactly. And some of those guys are the ones that talk about, like, I love Young Thug, you know? And when I put a Young Thug song on, I'm in a certain mood. Like, I want to listen to Young Thug, you know what I mean? But at the same time, like, there's so much, like, Young Thug is not the only rapper, you know? And Young Thug also, if you actually listen to him, doesn't only talk about that stuff too, you know?
Exactly, which is interesting too, hey?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of things to talk about in this kind of space. I don't know, it's interesting. Cypher has evolved so much in just 6 months, you know? So it's kind of exciting to hear everyone's different reactions or different answers to this question specifically, because not only does hip-hop mean something different to everyone, kind of was what I'm learning, is also that, you know, hip-hop is seen differently by everyone. You know, it's open to interpretation, which I think is cool.
I'm falling more and more in love with it.
Yeah.
And all of its potential, all of which it has done and all of which it will do.
Yeah. It's really a cool wave right now because it's growing so quickly. It blew up so fast, you know? And we haven't seen artists launch themselves as largely as artists like Snoop Dogg when he first came out, 50 Cent when he first came out. I mean, look at how Lil Nas X came out. He's
crushing it right now.
Old Town Road. Like, I mean, like, every song he puts out turns to gold lately. It's like these rappers are bursting on the hip hop. Like, no one came out like 50 did. You know? Get Rich or Die Trying.
I mean,
like,
come on.
I can't
He's so
think
gangster
of anyone.
He started singing. He started singing as a gangster thug. Like, he's gonna get eyes. It works. It's brilliant.
He was that Get Rich or Die Trying album. First, we have to just pay a little homage. Classic hip hop record. Also, who bursts onto the scene like that? You know, I mean, I don't even think Eminem came on that strong. You know?
No. I'm pretty sure 50 has that reputation for, like, he's here now. You know?
Exactly. It was always yeah. It's like, whether you like it or not, he's in the game. I love kind of the conversation around positivity, and was the mission of the positive kind of rapper, the positive kind of energy that you give off, was that always kind of the goal, or did you kind of find this along the way, like hip-hop needs something like this?
Yeah, I found it along the way, a little bit that not hip-hop needs it, but I feel like hip-hop can benefit from this contribution. And then also, I don't want to say in a panic, but I was unclear around what lane I wanted to be in. What was my brand? And I was preparing for an interview a couple of months back. I was like, how am I going to, what's my elevator pitch? What am I going to tell these people that, oh, yeah, you're a rapper, but, why? Why are you a rapper? What do you rap about? What's your elevator pitch, essentially? And I'm sitting on the bike doing some therapy for my legs, because still doing that for my knees.
Yeah.
Anyway,
hey,
there, I'm
gotta be consistent. Gotta be consistent.
There it is, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when I decided I'm going to be the happy rapper. And at that point in time, I already decided on my name, Big Lou Crew. This is my crew. I'm thinking about the community. And then I thought of an acronym. Community, respect, everyone's welcome. So I'm the happy rapper.
I like that.
This is my acronym. And essentially, thank you. What I want to do with that is I acknowledge that you can't be happy all the time. Happiness is only one emotion.
Yes.
I feel all of the emotions, and I want to be able to talk about them and connect with other people on those emotions, but through the perspective of positivity. We're not stuck here in this negative hate, disgust, jealousy, whatever we're feeling at this point in time. We can break through and feel the love, feel positivity, connect with one another. We can help, we can restore. That's what I want to try and do with the music.
It's important to, what you just said is so important, how, you want to be the happy rapper, but that's only one emotion. It's important to almost let people know, hey, I'm Big Luke, but I feel everything, recognizing that it's okay to not always be happy, as long as there's maybe a positive outlook underlying somewhere, it's okay to not be okay, it's just not okay to stay that way. I think that's a kind of an interesting distinction, and something that will be important for you and your music,
Yeah, thank you.
Is the subject material of what you talk about, because now we should also preface by saying the first song, do we have kind of a set date in mind for that yet, or what are you thinking about, the debut single?
Yeah, so it was scheduled for June 18th. I believe that's the Friday. However, we got back the master from one of the engineers, and he gave us a couple of notes to change before we do the actual. Sorry, we got the mix back from a high up engineer, and he's actually going to do the mastering, but we have to adjust some of the master. And when I received that, I realized that I still have to do some more work around, I guess, marketing and preparing for the release. So I think I may have to put it back a bit. However, I do have a small community of people on my email list and whatnot, and I'm just going to share it with them because they've been asking for time. So when it's ready, they can hear it, and then I suppose the world, I'm aiming for July.
Awesome. I'm so excited about that, especially for the world to hear it, because I think it's going to be a great message. And I'm excited to kind of see the debut, especially from a fan perspective. That's going to be cool for me.
I'm definitely going to share it with you earlier, though. That.
Well, I'm excited about that too. But it'll be fun to see people's reactions to the music.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that. And of course, I appreciate the Underground Connect.
Hey.
I'm interested to know, kind of, can you give us almost a little bit of a preview? What kinds of things are you excited to talk about in your songs?
Well, the first song that I'm putting out, which isn't by mistake, I like to think that I'm clever, I don't know, is more introductory around myself, my beliefs, who I am, what I'm looking for. It's called As a Crew, and essentially I'm inviting other people to join the community, to feel good, to dance, to have a little bit of love for one another. But it's very short, it's a short song, it's quick, and it's high energy. And then after that, I'm going into a song that's, I guess, quite the opposite of happiness. We're going to be talking about depression. It's a story that a friend of mine told me of his, and then I shared it through my perspective, almost telling other people his story, but not specific to him. And that's less dancey. It's it pulls on your heartstrings more, but it's still uplifting. So I'm interested to share that. But after that, I've got different styles that I want to try and incorporate. I've got Latin influence, I've got Caribbean influence. So if I can include all of these different styles into the music to really create a new fun experience, then I'm about that.
Hell yeah.
Does that answer your full question?
I think so, yeah. I think it does.
Okay.
I don't want you to give too much away before people can hear it, you know what I mean?
True,
but
true,
I wanted to kind of, I wrote down here, like, make him say something about it. Because I was like, I wanted you to talk a little bit about, you know, the music and kind of give people, you know, a little bit of what they can look forward to. This is kind of a new thing I'm trying. This is called HipHop Would You Rather. And the question is, so, look, we just got a huge album from J. Cole, The Off Season. You know, great project, in my opinion. I think it will go down as a classic hip-hop record. I think J. Cole has made great albums. He's an album rapper, in my opinion. He's an incredible storyteller in terms of, here's my vision for what I want you to know from song 1 to song 12 or whatever it is. And he really gives you he doesn't leave anything out. I think it's incredible.
Can you believe it's been 2 years since he released an album?
No, I can't. I really can't. You know, and it doesn't feel like it has been. Maybe it does a little bit. I don't know. He put, you know, Dreamville had that whole thing that they did, and that was dope. And then he put out Lewis Street, which was The Climb Back, was on that, which was great. So I felt like we kind of had a couple of things sprinkled in here and there. But this album, you know,
it's different.
We were waiting for a J. Cole album. It hits different, you know?
Yep.
So I think that kind of put a little bit of pressure on artists like Drake and Kendrick and, you know, some of these other artists that are like, okay, like, we're anticipating some releases. So the question is, would you rather Drake and Kendrick both have albums potentially coming out this year, if not very soon after? You get to choose one release party to go to. Are you going to Drake's or are you going to Kendrick's?
Oh,
Kendrick's is in LA, Drake's is in Toronto.
I'm going to LA. I'm going to Kendrick's. Reason?
Now, what's the reason?
Oh, do you want the reason?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so the reason is because I'm closer to Toronto, so I'm relying on the relationships that I can build near home on myself, and then I can just start connecting out there in LA. And I mean, like, Kendrick's pretty cool too. I'm not like fanning Kendrick over Drake. But that's the reason.
You're making a business decision.
You got to. Yeah.
I was like, actually, it was kind of funny. As soon as you said, you know, leveraging connections, I was like, oh, he's thinking 3 years down the line already. You know, the hip hop would you rather question turned into scheming. I love it. So the follow up is, okay, you chose Kendrick in LA. Now you have to choose between Kendrick and Travis Scott.
Kendrick.
Travis Scott is dropping Utopia. Really? You go Kendrick all the way? Okay.
I go Kendrick.
I might do Travis.
Why?
For that one.
Why would you do Travis?
I love Travis. I think Travis is musically and sonically, I think he's a genius. I think the production on his albums is some of the best that hip hop has seen, maybe ever. I think musically, nobody has a style like him, you know, because I don't necessarily think that. I don't think that he's as drugged out as people sometimes think that he is. I think that's just like kind of how he was. I think that's just kind of how he makes music. I think he likes to make that kind of like psychedelic, like spacey kind of vibey music. So I really love like really listening to all parts of a good Travis Scott song because I think that there's always something new to hear. Stargazing. The first song off of Astro World, I'm still rocking with that. I'm still rock. Like I put that on in the car driving down Lakeshore. Like I still rock with that. I really love Travis. I really think that he's a good artist. You know, and
he's definitely
made more
highly
attempts
talented
to become lyrical. Yeah, he's made more attempts to become lyrical, however you want to say it. You know, I've started to think more about like the lyrical versus non-lyrical rap lately, and how much of a thing that actually still is, because I'm experimenting in my head with thoughts about that, but that's probably a whole nother interview. But I think I would maybe choose Travis.
That's fair.
That would be
the reason I would choose Kendrick is because I think he's the better storyteller. Travis is definitely, I think,
Yeah.
more entertaining on stage, and he does have all of those very musical attributes that you mentioned. But for me, it's the
Right.
storytelling that Kendrick has that I would then be able to like incorporate into my storytelling.
Hey, Kendrick is one of the most talented storytellers by far. For sure.
Man, hands down. But I mean, Travis Scott. If I had to choose between the two, I would choose Kendrick. But if I could choose both, I'm choosing both.
Hey, if I get a +1, I got you.
Let's go.
Listen, Lou, my final question for you today is, what is your mission with all of this? Go Produce, Big Lou Crew, anything that you're thinking about even further down the line that you're not even ready to share yet. I think with me for Cypher, the biggest thing that I want to do is just create a dope hip-hop brand, And so I'm interested to hear what is your purpose with this,
Okay, so my Louis purpose is to live. Crushing that.
Okay. Good job.
Just going to continue doing that. Go Produce. The goal by August 2022 is to be the largest music industry business podcast in Canada. We're going to be helping 100. We're going to be helping 1 million music industry professionals turn their passion into profit. We could do this. That's what we're going to do. Big Lou, as an artist, my goal is to be an internationally performing artist. I will be doing tours around the world, and that is the goal. When, I haven't set a timeline on that because I haven't even released my first song. So let's go with my first goal as an artist is to release that song before September.
That. I love that. You got to walk before you can run,
Yes, sir. Yes,
and you
sir.
got to love the process.
I thought so.
Lou, listen, is there anything right now that you want to take the time to tell our listeners about, promote, hype up, what's coming next? What can people look forward to, from your camp?
Yes, so many things. We've got Go Produce essentially every week. If you are at all interested in learning about the industry side of the music world, check us out. We are on all of the platforms that you can find podcasts, YouTube, even if you like the video aspect of it. Right now, we're also doing a reflections series, so it's like a summary of everything if you want something that's more condensed. Just check us out, Go Produce. On Instagram, we are at go.produce, and it's lots of fun. We are about to launch season 4. I think I just said that next month, and we've included lots of new segments, lots of exciting new guests. So check us out there. Final words. Did you ask for final words? I feel like I'm going to say final words too. Final words.
But now I didn't. But now I am. I'm asking.
Now
for final
you
words.
are. Deal.
Yeah.
Final words would be: if you are uncomfortable with where you are, try doing just one thing differently, and do that one thing differently every day for like 2 weeks, and then reevaluate. See what has come from that, and then try something different if that doesn't work.
That's awesome. I think I'm going to start a new segment now with every guest. I'm going to make them do final words because that was
Nice.
because that was great. I have to ask you, for our last kind of segment of the episode here, we always do Undeciphered, which is where we talk about artists that maybe aren't hitting, the international stage in the growing process, artists that are trying to get theirs. And I'm interested, Lou, for Undeciphered this week, who is your artist?
I've got someone in mind. I went to school with him, and since then he's been doing his artistry. He's a rapper. He's like he does stadium hip hop. His name is Raz, and R-A-Z.
Yeah.
One of his most recent songs that he put out that comes to mind is "One Time for Your Mind," and it's the chorus goes, "Freedom ain't free, hell it ain't cheap," and it goes on appreciating like the situations that we have. We should not take it for granted. It's a really cool perspective on life. So that's Raz, "One Time for Your Mind."
I love that. This is my favorite part of, kind of one of my favorite parts, at least I should say, of doing the Cypher, which is asking people for their undeciphered artist, which, in case our listeners don't know yet. Undeciphered is another way of saying undiscovered, you know? We're trying to give a little bit of love back to the artists that don't sometimes get enough of it. So that's kind of what the goal is with that section. And I really do, you know, come with an artist and the name of one or two of their songs, and I will go and actually listen to all of them. And so far, I've been turned on to some dope music. So I'm excited to hear, you know, what everybody's kind of bringing me. It's awesome. I'll listen to it. Raz, One Time for Your Mind. I love it.
Yeah.
My artist this week is I actually met this guy out in LA, and he was so cool. His name is Sylvan LeQ. He's his flow is just unlike anything I've ever heard. Like, I kind of felt like when Drake came onto the scene, it was like, holy shit, Drake's voice is like a career maker. Sylvan's flow is a career maker. He's so talented. I get one of the songs of his, this came out more recently, that I absolutely love. It's called Peter Pan featuring Grandmaster Vic. I mean, it's just so intricate in his style, and it's so cool to listen to him hop on a beat because you kind of know what you're going to get because he has his own very unique flow, but also at the same time, you have no idea what you're going to get. So it's a guessing game, but it's not really. I love it. It keeps me on my toes every time. So,
how do you spell Sylvan?
LeQ. Sylvan is, let me make sure that I'm spelling this correctly. Okay. Sylvan is Sylvan space LACUE. Sylvan LeQ. Very talented guy. I met him out in LA. Yeah, like the quick story there is I was actually out in LA with two other buddies of mine. They were, you know, just out there recording. They were working on their projects. And we were in and out of studios, and we were, you know, kind of hanging out with this other kind of manager guy or whatever. And while we were there, we were in this one particular recording studio, kind of off the beaten path, and it was kind of in one of those areas where we were like, all right, are we even still in LA kind of thing? But, like, we totally were. And we pulled up. It's literally like 3 rooms. And it literally, the wallpaper looked like the wallpaper that I'm sitting next to. It was so, like, didn't feel like a music studio, you know? But it was so cool to be in the room with such creative people, you know? And, like, this was a time when I wanted to be an artist so badly. Like, I always wanted to be an artist when I was in, like, high school and early college. And this was the year after I graduated college, so I had kind of found kind of my passion for the business side at this point. But what I was so in love with was just, like, the vibe of being in the studio with artists during the creative process. I found that I really loved that. And so that experience for me was interesting because it kind of solidified the fact that even though I myself won't be an artist, I know for a fact that I want to work with them. So that's my Sylvan LeQ story, and he's super cool. He actually just did a verse on one of my buddy's tracks. So that song's going to come out probably later this year. I'm not going to say too much more than that because we're planning something kind of cool for it. But we did get the Sylvan feature. As DJ Khaled would say, the vocals are in. The Sylvan vocals are in. So we're excited about that. Listen, Big Lou, thank you so much for joining us today on The Cypher. We had so much fun chatting with you, learning about your journey, and talking about your artistry. I really, really appreciate you for taking the time today. Listen, you can find Big Lou. We're going to put all of his apps and links in the description of the episode, so go check him out on all platforms. He's killing it, and the podcast is awesome, so keep doing what you have to do in order to learn yourself how to be an artist, but also share the wealth with others because there are so many people out there that can benefit from it. So thank you for doing what you're doing, and let's do this again soon. This was awesome. I think that this was a lot of fun.
I had so much fun too. Thank you so much, Mikey. I'm definitely down to do this some more, and I'm sure we'll chat some more and make beautiful things happen.
I can't wait. All right. Thanks, Lou.
Cheers, good sir.
Okay, that was it.